DKT UPSC CSC। अगर आप केवल सिविल सर्विस परीक्षा के प्रीलिम्स, मेंस और इंटरव्यू के वीडियो देखना चाहते हैं तो सब्सक्राइब करें DKT UPSC CSC चैनल। यहाँ आपको टॉपर्स के वीडियो रैंक के हिसाब से अरेंज मिलेंगे। चैनल के लिंक के लिए डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में जाएं।
I'm Yash Kale. I've secured rank 22 in Indian Forest Services Mains Exam 2021. Here we are with Delhi Knowledge Track today, discussing the intricacies of Indian Forest Services, the strategy. In this video, we will be primarily talking about geology optional. Geology is among the most popular optionals in Indian Forest Services, particularly among students who don't have engineering optional as one of their choices. Now, the natural question is, since this is not a very well-known subject, why would a candidate want to take geology as an optional? So, one of the primary reasons for taking that is that it is a very well-defined, a short and a very concise optional that can be prepared well within the realms of whatever time is available. Secondly, candidates with a general comfort and knowledge of geography can be very comfortable with the technicalities and the nuances of the subject, because a good part of overlap happens with it. And finally, since it's a technical subject, a lot of logical and scientific analysis and thinking can be done, which reduces the need for rote learning and makes the subject far more easy to understand and comprehend. Regarding the resources that I prepared for in geology, so the principal source was Principles of Engineering Geology by Mr. K.M. Bangar. That is a brilliant book on the fundamentals of geology, and that covers a good 50 to 60% of the subject in a very detailed and a very easy and lucid manner. Regarding the rest of the subject resources, there are a lot of toppers who compiled sources, various sources, and compiled information and critical information that you may need into concise notes, and these notes are available in the market. It's also available online. You can very easily find it on Telegram, on resources websites online. So, the toppers' names are Mr. Prajesh Jeena and Mr. Amit Jain. Both of them are formally selected into Indian Forest Services with geology as their optional, and they've done a wonderful job of summarizing the existing notes and also adding on critical details from other sources which may not be present in KM Bangar. Regarding the preparation strategy for the optional, naturally, because the period between the Civil Services Mains and the Forest Services Mains is very limited, there is a short amount of time, that is 40 days. In the 40 days, what I did was I devoted 35 days for optional. Among that 35 days, I devoted nearly 18 days for geology and 17 days for forestry. Within the 18 days for geology, I divided into 3 parts, wherein the first round, that was the introductory and the fundamental round, I took around 10 days to understand the subject and to appreciate its nuances. I went through each and every resource. I understood what needs to be done, the demand of the questions. I analyzed the previous year questions so that I could understand what is the part I should be focusing on. In the second round, I not only consolidated what I had learned before, but I also started to analyze the frequently asked questions and where I could find them, and to narrow down on these topics and revise them repeatedly. Along with that, there was also a focus on rote learning. There are certain chapters which require a lot of rote learning. Stratigraphy is one of those chapters which involve a lot of rote learning of the layers and the time periods and everything. So, and there is no easy way around it, sadly. One of the ways to make it slightly easy is to use mnemonics, and you can be very creative with your use for mnemonics. That will make it easier for you to remember all the layers. There are nearly 20 to 25 tables, each with its own 10 to 15 rows of data that you need to very well remember, along with other supplementary data. So, naturally, in the second round, I focused primarily on this, and in the third round, that was immediately preceding the paper, I focused on any last minute revision, closing any loopholes in the preparation, and slightly writing, discussing it with other peers who are also preparing for the same exam. The question is how important it is to make notes for the exam. Now, since there is a very limited time available and there is a very rich content of notes already available by other toppers, I would not recommend making a lot of notes. Make notes only for the topics that you wish to revise by yourself by writing it down, or if there are certain very high probability questions that need preparation of model answers. Apart from that, since the subject is quite big and there are a lot of content that you have to revise in a very short period of time, I would not recommend making notes. What you can do instead is practice answer writing. For example, for stratigraphy, for diagram practicing for folds and faults, for the prediction of properties of mineral rocks such as feldspar, such as biotite, etc. So, note making can be done very strategically, and you should ensure that it does not take a lot of your time, and it is absolutely not a very essential part of preparation. The question is which topics I found difficult. So, the most important, most difficult topic was stratigraphy, because that involved a lot of rote learning of things that I did not understand very well. Then after that, there is economic geography, which involves very detailed data on each of the important mineral found in the country. So, after a while it gets very tedious to remember all these names which we are not familiar with. And of course, there is mining, which mining and engineering geology. That part is also difficult because there is a lot of data that is needed. That is a very huge chapter, and it is very technical, and there is a lot of examples that you may not necessarily remember. The easier topics of course are the ones which overlap with geography. There is physical geography, there is folds and faults, which are very intuitive, which are very diagram interactive, so you can very easily get through them. There is of course environmental geology, which involves the effects of mining or the effects of construction of dams, etc., which are very intuitive, and knowledge of environment beforehand definitely helps. There are also chapters such as igneous rocks, which is quite easy to understand once you get a hang of it, and there is crystallography. Now that is a chapter which may seem very daunting at start, but the moment you are able to memorize a few things, the rest of the chapter is just application of what you have memorized. There is one chapter, paleontology, that seems difficult, but adequate diagram practice will solve half of the problem, because the diagrams are quite self-explanatory, and therefore you don't need to go much beyond the diagrams. Just practice the diagram well, and just be ready to explain the diagram well, and for each understand the uniqueness of each organism that is being talked about. Say for example, horses. In horses, the Equisidae, that is the genus, their evolution is what is primarily asked. The evolution of their head, their teeth, their legs is what is generally the defining traits between each species. There is also microfossils and such as Ammonidae. So, in that, wherein their evolution or their morphology is something that is of peak geological interest. But overall, geology is a very interesting subject, and once you get a hang of it, it is very intuitive, and you will be able to predict a lot of things without having to memorize them per se. And the moment you understand the nuances, the principles governing why certain minerals act certain way, or why a certain fossil is found in a certain area, it seems very interesting, and you will be hooked on to the subject. So, I had a lot of fun memorizing it, and a lot of fun studying it. After the initial inertia period, that is definitely bound to be there, because we are not very well versed with the terminology. The rest of the subject should be a cakewalk, and it is very rewarding in terms of marks. So, I would definitely implore you to consider taking it as one of the optionals. Finally, when it comes to diagram making, geology is full of diagrams. There are certain topics that inevitably need you to practice and draw diagrams. These are what will add value to your questions, and will definitely fetch you far more marks than the other ones. Topics such as paleontology, such as folds and faults, such as crystallography are something that definitely need diagrams, and you will benefit a lot from practice beforehand. Do not leave any diagrams directly for the exam, because you may not be well versed with the framing of the diagram and the structure of it. So yeah, I think we've fairly summarized most of the facets of the preparation for geology. Apart from knowledge, it is very imperative that certain best practices are followed in answer writing, so that it fetches you a lot more marks than the other candidates. There are certain what you can say cherry on the top that you can do. The most important one being of diagrams. I have also explained it before, the importance of using diagrams in geology. The number 2 is in using the right examples, avoiding use of generic examples, and quoting the right rock, quoting the right stratigraphic period, quoting the right mineral is extremely important. Along with that, if you could prepare certain chemical formulas of certain rocks, certain chemical properties, physical properties of certain rocks, such as color, such as streak, such as habit, that is very important. Along with that, applications of geology are extremely important, such as preparation in dam, bridges, culverts and other buildings. So framework preparation would be very helpful, wherein if a certain topic is asked for what is the importance of folds and faults in geology, you should not only be talking about it in geological sense, you should be talking about the morphological, geophysical, in engineering geology applications, hydrogeology applications. So these frameworks, if prepared well, you don't need to think a lot about it because you already read that a lot. It will just give you a very quick way of multifaceted answer writing. So that is definitely that can be followed. A chart preparation of minerals can be used very well, because without adequate background of it, the properties of minerals can be very daunting. Properties of rocks can be very difficult to understand. For example, in KM Bangar, there is a brilliant diagram on the properties of igneous rocks that goes on progressing from alkaline to acidic and from light to dark mineral rocks, along with the plutonic and the intrinsic rocks, which makes it very easy to predict the properties of rock merely on the location of their table. There is also a very nice diagram based in metamorphic rocks, which can make it very intuitive, and it would be imperative to use these diagrams in the answer writing. And finally, regarding minerals, there is a very well-known progression of minerals from light minerals to darker minerals, heavier minerals. For example, quartz and feldspar would lie in the lighter mineral category, while the olivine, pyroxene, garnet are something that will lie in the heavier mineral category. So this diagram of minerals can be prepared. It is very helpful, as most of the properties, there are only nearly 10 to 12 properties that you would need to memorize. Most of these properties follow a very set pattern. Say for example, the density and the specific gravity, the color, the habit of all of these rocks would progressively change from lighter to heavier minerals. There is also a correlation that you can establish with the crystal structure, the silica structure of these minerals, and also about the habit, which can help you predict other optical properties as well. So it is very important to establish this correlation between various topics that you learn, so that you can make it far more logical. The same way knowledge of periodic table can help understand chemistry very easily, similarly these tables can make geology very helpful. So these are the value added parts that you can use. And finally, regarding time management, because this is just a 40-day period and 60 days in the coming optionals, wherein you need to prepare for 2 optionals along with GK and English, you would need to be very prudent in time management. Focus on previous year questions largely, and don't give a lot of time to large chapters which don't have a lot of potential in answer writing or potential in marks. I put generally a period of 10 to 12 hours daily, out of which, as I mentioned before, 17 days out of the 40 days were used for 18 days after the 40 days were used for geology. So I would recommend the candidate in proportionate terms for a 40 or a 60-day period to stick to the same time frame. If you can add one more round of revision, that is, I could do only 3, but given that now there are 20 extra days, you can squeeze in another round of preparation. These 40-day period is extremely intensive, and it can get very daunting at times, not just for your physical but also for your mental health. It is very important to take care of this. I followed a lot of stress busting activities, such as talking to friends, watching videos, TV shows, going out for some short walks that you can do, because it is important that not only that the amount of time that the axe is used to cut the tree, but also the amount of time that is used to sharpen the axe. So these are the kind of practices with stress busting that will help you stay active and stay focused during this entire preparation. Be prudent in time management, do not overdo things, do not underdo things, and do not waste time until you have planned for it. You can obviously take out certain time for hobbies or for for stress busting, but ensure that they don't shoot their limits and they are within the realms of what the preparation can demand. I hope you found this video useful, and if there are any doubts, you can very easily reach out to me on social media. A lot of thanks to Delhi Knowledge Track for giving me this opportunity to speaking to aspirants such as you for preparation of geology, and I hope you found this useful and hope to see you in the services very soon. Thank you.